Hello and welcome. You're watching Head to Head and I'm Oles Gerjuk with UATV. Today we're talking about punishment of Ukrainian officials for illegal enrichment. In the end of October, Ukraine's parliament has voted to reinstate criminal liability for illegal enrichment and introduced a civil confiscation tool for unjustified assets possessed by officials. The corresponding law came into force on the 28th of November. So how exactly will it work? To talk more about this, we welcome to our studio today Zlata Simonenko. She is a law expert at Reanimation Package of Reforms. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
So the new law was welcomed by the international partners, in particular by the World Bank. Could you please explain us how beneficial it is for Ukraine?
This law is very important for Ukraine, especially when we will speak about our European integration, because it was the requirement from IMF, from World Bank, Council of Europe. All of this group of people helped us to draft this law. Now we changed this law. As you know, before the Constitutional Court of Ukraine cancelled the previous amendments and addition of this article, illegal enrichment, and now we have a new edition of this article in our criminal code. We changed the main thing that now we don't use the word evidence in the article of criminal court. Mm-hmm. It's the main difference between previous edition and the edition that we have now.
Well, I think we'll discuss the differences between these two laws a little bit later. Now let's explain the audience what scale of illegal enrichment are we talking about?
We speak about the article of illegal enrichment. The first thing that if the person who get or got the position in the government, in the parliament, doesn't matter, got the assets more than now it's like 6 million hryvnias. It means like that and cannot prove the evidences how what is the roots of these assets. Mm-hmm. It means like that the person got these assets in illegal way. Mm-hmm. The scale of criminal responsibility for such crime is from 5 to 10 years in the prison, and also it's some restrictions for 3 years. This person cannot be adopted on an appointment on the position in the government.
Mm-hmm. So, if I understand correctly, if the official cannot prove some incomes that exceed 6.2, from what I read, million Ukrainian hryvnias, this person can be tried for illegal enrichment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, but tell us how will this law work in practice? Maybe some peculiarities of this law, and what law enforcement bodies will be actually authorized to to investigate these cases and then to have this court processes.
With such article of criminal court, it's possible to work just National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, because it's the article about corruption, and all governments who may be under the suspicion of this article, their criminal investigation will be provided just by National Anti-Corruption Bureau, plus special anti-corruption prosecution office, because they are the main person who will represent this case in the courts. As we know before, we had actually a lot of cases, not a lot, but more than 10 cases about illegal enrichment. But all these cases were closed by National Anti-Corruption Bureau and Special Anti-Corruption Prosecution Office, because the Constitutional Court cancelled this article. Now we have a new edition, but we have a very specific principle of criminal code that if this article was cancelled before, and all these cases were closed, now we cannot reopen these cases.
We cannot reopen.
Yes, we cannot. Actually, it will be the big discussion, because some lawyers said that we may open, others say that we cannot open, but I think that we will have one more case in Constitutional Court where judges actually should say, May we open one more again these criminal cases against the same persons, again on the same basis for these criminal cases, or no?
So now, well, from what I know, there are 65 cases that were closed, right, by the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office after the Constitutional Court declared these previous law about illegal enrichment unconstitutional. So basically, we lost 65 processes, and what you say is that now every single case has to be gone through the Constitutional Court again in order to be reopened?
These cases will not go through the Constitutional Court. It just the Constitutional Court. I think that it will be new proceeding in the Constitutional Court where people, not like people, where the government should prove that they may open the same criminal cases. Because when we drafted, I took part in the drafting law and new edition of this article, we had a very big discussion. Is it possible to open the criminal cases on the same basis, against the same people or person, just because we had this issue with the previous edition of the article. As we discussed, and we had such conclusion that now it's impossible, unfortunately. But at the same time, this new edition of article will help and National Anti-Corruption Bureau and Special Anti-Corruption Prosecution Office to find new evidences for new criminal cases, and they have the opportunity to open new criminal investigations against such people if they have some evidences that the people got in illegal way these assets or incomes.
So from what I understood, they have to find some new evidence about these cases, and then they have to resume work on these investigation, well, on the case through the Constitutional Court. So they can, basically the same
Constitutional Court is just an institution where you may say, is it legal or illegal way of the articles of the law. The Constitutional...
I'm talking about these 65 closed cases still.
Yes, these 65 closed cases, now it's impossible to reopen this criminal case.
So there is no way?
No way. It just will be the discussion, in my opinion, it will be a discussion if we will have one more criminal cases against the same people. They will say that, like, sorry guys, but you already closed these criminal investigations. But now NABU will open a new criminal investigation on the same basis, but with the different, other evidences against these people.
Can you please compare these old and new editorials of the law on illegal enrichment?
Yes, the main task for a group of people who drafted this law, it was that the Constitutional Court of Ukraine wrote in the decision that it's impossible to use in criminal code some procedural elements, especially evidences, because before that we used in our article that if the person got incomes in a legal way without evidences, it means that the person may be responsible for such actions. The Constitutional Court said that it's impossible to use the word evidence. Now we redrafted this draft of law.
This presumption of innocence?
Yes. And now we changed this addition, but moreover we added the third people who may somehow connected to the main person who actually got these illegal assets or incomes. Plus we add a special procedure of civil confiscation in the Civil Procedural Code of Ukraine, where the NABU in a special anti-corruption court of Ukraine, High Anti-Corruption Court of Ukraine, may apply and submit the documents that they cannot prove in the court that this person is guilty, but they may prove that all these assets and incomes
should be arrested.
Not just should be
confiscated.
arrested, confiscated without the court decision of that this person is guilty.
Wow, so this is the new mechanism that was developed
in
this new
mechanism
editorial.
It works in different European countries and in the United States. It works, especially it was the model of Great Britain, where it works very well in a very good way. But also we will have, I think that possibly we will have some issues because it will be a new procedure for Ukraine, a new institution, never before. Never. Ukraine have never used such mechanism of confiscation assets if the person cannot just prove in the court, without
the origin of this
yes.
income. But what if the offender shows the source of this income, well, which was not declared earlier, but the person decided to show it when he or she faced the problem of being investigated by the National Anti-Corruption Bureau? What then? What happens in this situation?
The main issue of these evidences is that, unfortunately, Ukraine has some issues with the legal incomes before 2001, 2002. And when we speak about sources of evidences, we also discuss these problems, how to prove in the court that it's illegal or not illegal assets. And it's possible to prove with different ways. If you have some documents, if you may get some documents from tax office, if you may have some explanations from different people who have such documents, it means like that, like for NABU and SAPO, for the people who will be under suspicion and who will represent these guys in the courts, it means like that they need to prove with different instruments of criminal procedure court how they may prove the legal or illegal way of getting such assets.
Mm-hmm. Well, this new law also provides for higher responsibility or maybe more severe punishment for illegal enrichment because the old version of it the offender would face up to 2 years of detention or up to 5 to 10 years of imprisonment. But this new law provides for 5 to 10 years in jail, which is more severe. But at the same time, the threshold of this illegal enrichment has been drastically increased because we remember that before the official could be tried or investigated for illegal enrichment if he or she would not be able to prove the origins of incomes of around 1 million hryvnias, yes. And now we're talking about 6 million, even over 6 million hryvnias. What do you think about this?
I think that we should try to understand that in Ukraine, assets usually or incomes, it's more than 1 or 2 million hryvnias, usually. When you open the criminal investigation and when you're starting this investigation, you understand that the flat, the houses, the cars, it's not just should be one element of some illegal incomes. It should be some construction, like we said, like model of the illegal assets and incomes, as usually they are more than like 6 million. Because when I took part, for example, also in one commission, and we checked different declarations, different incomes and assets of the people, we understood that usually illegal incomes or illegal assets, it's more than 5-6 million hryvnias. Moreover, you should understand that the punishment for such crime is very high. It means like that the person should really committed such crime, high-level risky crime for the society. If we want to punish such person, for example, we may send this person to the prison for 10 years with the all confiscation of all assets.
So we're talking about big cases,
yes,
only. And plus, I've heard, I don't know, I've heard from media, from different interviews that now we're focusing on these big cases because NABU are also understaffed. So basically, yes, now this legislation is aimed at focusing on these large scale of illegal enrichment. And just to conclude this conversation, very briefly, your evaluation of this editorial.
I think that such article or such edition of this article will work and will work better. It will help, like, for NABU to work, like, to focus more on the people. On the people who worked or work before in the government, which really got in legal way incomes. At the same time, we will not have some issues with the Constitutional Court because in this edition we don't have any procedural elements of the criminal procedural code, or we will not have some issues with the courts because already adopted. We have mechanism how it should work. It's really detailed written how the High Anti-Corruption Court should work with such cases. And moreover, I think that in nearest future, maybe in 1 year, we will have such cases in the High Anti-Corruption Court of Ukraine.
Well, let's hope that this law will be enforced not only on paper, but also in practice, and it will bring to justice those who dared to ransack the country. Thank you so much for your comments, and thank you for being a guest today in the studio. That was Zlata Simonenko, law expert at Reanimation Package of Reforms. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Oles Gajuk. Goodbye.